facing a biodiversity crisis, we have pollution in our rivers, we have a climate crisis. We do not really have a clear direction of how to deal with all of this.
So we can all see it happening, and yet so many of us, particularly our institutions and organisations, appear to think that it doesn't matter and business as usual will see us through, when that is obviously not the case.
But what if our most powerful solutions isn't a new technologies, but something far more ancient, far more natural? What if the answer lies with one species that was once a vital part of our landscape, hunted to extinction and is now making a remarkable comeback? I'm talking about the beaver.
Grow forestry in the form of cricketbat willows, so Essex is one of the best places in the country to grow cricketbats.
Here we are at the original beaver enclosure, which was 2019, and you can see the fencing around it that we have to use to keep the beavers in.
If I were you, I'd come down a bit further and you can see the sort of breadth of it more. Okay, so we're now standing in the Moors enclosure, which is our original first enclosure on the estate. It's one of 3. So all the water that you see in here now is entirely as a result of the beavers having established their habitat and doing what beavers do. So they basically redesigned the habitat to make them self-sufficient. The area in Essex is known as being a very flashy area. In other words, we either have a lot of rain, where the original ditch was in flood, going straight down into the pond in the middle of Finchingfield village. So this is Finchingfield village itself, and as you can see, the contours all end up in the pond straight behind me. And the houses around that pond never used to flood historically. It's only been in the recent decades that flooding has begun. And when you look at the surrounding features, you can see that in the past, the flooding has come up to the War Memorial, around all of those buildings, including that pub. They've all been flooded on a regular basis. So since introducing the beavers, we haven't had any significant flooding. It's just lapped at the top of the pond edge, which really goes to show that the beavers are contributing very positively to reducing that flooding that was typically happening previously.
Then what happens is they hold the water. They slow the process of these big flood events. When the water comes down heavily, they get caught in the dams. Sometimes they may even destroy some of the dams, but broadly speaking, they get slowed down, which means that the water will not build up in the same way in the built up areas, in the urban areas. And so it should help to prevent flooding in those areas through a natural means, through an effective natural means. It's very positive, it's very good.
But beavers don't just protect us from floods, they bring landscape back to life. Biodiversity in beaver managed areas can be up to 5 times higher than in similar unmanaged sites. Wetlands restored by beavers also support over 40% of the UK's priority species.
Whilst the beavers were introduced primarily as a natural flood management solution, what has been truly amazing is the speed in which they have created this absolutely diverse structural habitat. Because you've got that structural diversity as well as the sort of botanical diversity, it's now been colonised by a rich variety of species. So we now see a large increase in bat species, including barbastelle. We have kingfishers, we have newts, we have a plethora of frogs and toads. no end of invertebrates, so damselflies, dragonflies, butterflies, reed warblers.
It filters the water, other wildlife moves in, botanical species move in, because you wet a piece of ground and the seeds in the ground that have been lying dormant for years and years suddenly spring up. So things change. And 2 nights ago, had a kingfisher just fly past. Wonderful, because you can hear it before it comes and then you see it fly past. That would not have happened if the beavers weren't here.
So very much just about the canopy, which is very closed, which gives you shade, and very little shrub layer or ground flora because of the shade. So you can see by comparison what the beavers have done where they've opened it up along the watercourse, and you've got sunlight and you've got growth. You know, the understory is growing, as is the ground flora. All the vegetation around that wouldn't be here if this was bone dry. So this would be bare woodland floor with a very heavy canopy over it. But now, because you've got the light present and you've got the water present, that water table has risen significantly. You've now got this massive sort of exponential burst of biodiversity that's been created by the beaver being present. Originally, the enclosure was just plantation, as you can see up there. Very much trees that were replanted after the 1987 hurricane. Very much closed canopy. There wasn't much light in the enclosure at all. It was very uniform, so there was very little understory or ground flora. But here now, as you can see, with the beavers having opened up the area by felling some trees and starting to create that habitat and the moisture, importantly, that goes with that, you can now see we have a really diverse habitat mosaic that is really starting to mature. And as a result of that, we're seeing significantly more species present within this area compared to what there used to be. The plant diversity has increased exponentially, as has things like the invertebrates, because we've got a lot more flora and deadwood within the system now. We've got a lot more structure. The beavers are felling trees, but they're also allowing them to regrow. In other words, they're coppicing them, and they regrow so that they can then eat them again. They're creating their own self-sustaining structure, if you like. They surround themselves with water for safety, but they also surround themselves by water because then they feed on the semi-aquatic species that then start to develop within the pools. So they're creating their own food source long term.
Beavers can transform landscapes, but unlocking their full potential means releasing them in the right place with the right support and long-term management.
Introducing beavers back into our landscape has to be done incredibly carefully. We don't feel it's appropriate for us to inflict that upon other people around us.
Start talking to people 4, 5, 6 years before you want to do any work with beavers. Start to talk to people as soon as possible. We also understand that it is a complex situation and it might not be the right thing to do everywhere. So talk to people, find out what they think.
Beavers have to be in the right location. So when we applied for the licence, we had to make sure that we had the correct design of enclosure, that it was a suitable size, a suitable type of habitat for them, that there was enough forage in there. We had to construct a fence that was beaver proof because they're very good at digging. We had to get consent to alter the watercourses at either end because we have to keep the beavers in, and that comes down to kit size as well as adult size. So we had to do quite a lot of actual practical work. We have to check the fencing every week without fail to make sure that the beavers aren't finding a way out. We also have to ensure that they are healthy, and so we have cameras up monitoring their health. So we check those cameras, make sure that things like their weight is good, their fur is in good condition, they don't have scars on their tails, etc. So anything that would be associated either with conflict or lack of food or poor health, we need to make sure that none of our beavers are in those sorts of conditions. So all of our beavers are really healthy, and that's our responsibility because it isn't an enclosure, it's a slightly false situation. So it's a big responsibility.
Beavers adjust their environment to suit themselves, but by doing so they bring about benefits for a huge variety of other wildlife and the habitat that they create itself.
So beavers are an incredible species. They are keystone species and they fill a gap in the ecosystem that we just don't have at the moment. They have the sort of magic touch, really. They do a little bit of everything and we really need that back.
It is absolutely incredible, the way that the pace of change, the way that they create that habitat and the way it's always changing. So people just love to see that.
And when you're in here in the morning at dawn, at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 5 o'clock, you've got the cacophony of the dawn chorus coming in, and the water, you've got a little bit of sun on the water, and then the beaver swims along in the sunny water. I've used that word before, it's just magic. And it's a privilege to be here.
Beavers' importance to our landscape is undeniable. They offer a powerful pathway to a more resilient UK, but their return must be managed with care, with patience, and with science. By embracing these incredible ecosystem engineers and by ensuring the reintroductions is done with responsibility, we can make both people and nature thrive. It's about doing rewarding right for the benefit of us all.